Welcome to Live DAF, your online DAF Yomi Shir.
Hello and Shalom Aleichem. Welcome back to today's DAF. Bava Metzia DAF Yud Aleph. We're at the Mishnah, which is 7 lines off the top of the Amud. Says the Mishnah, Ra Oisan. So the landowner notices some people, Ratzin Achar Metzia. They're running after a Metzia. So basically they noticed a lost item lying in this fellow's backyard, and they're trying to get it. They're pursuing the item. Or achar tzvi shavar. So the first was an inanimate object. Now we have a live animal, but he's injured. His legs are broken and he can't run. So they're chasing the tzvi shavar, this deer, who is about to be caught by them. Achar goizolish leparchu. Or they have some birds who have not yet learned the art of flying. So this fellow is about to grab these items. Seeing this, the owner says, you know what? Why should they get it? It's sitting in my property. Let me have it. V'amar, he declares. He calls out, Zochsali sadi. I want my sada, my field, my property, to be zeicha, to acquire the item on my behalf. What happens? That's exactly what happens. Zochsali. That's it. It becomes his. He's the new owner. Rashi explains, in all these, the item is secure. It's safe and secure. Basically, it's not going anywhere. A tzvi shavar can't run. These birds cannot fly away. So basically, it's called a chatzar hamishtameres. It's a chatzar. It's a property which has the item secure in its hold. So we learn from Psukim that chatzar is a form of kinyan, right? So therefore it's his. But let's say the animal was on the run. The birds were about to take off. The animal's just running. All these birds have the capability of flying away. And in this case, he got up and says, V'amar zochsali sadi. Does it work? No, le'mar klum. It's worthless because the item is not in his possession. It's like an item sitting in the street, right? It's not in his domain, so to speak, even though it is in his backyard, because it could just fly away and run away. So it doesn't relate to that property, and it's not considered in his possession. He's not koine. Amar B'damar Shmuel, here comes a chiddush. When we speak about a chatzar, which is koine something within it, on behalf of its owner, you should know that the owner must be present at the time of kinyan, provided that he's standing near his property. Asks the Gemara why? Why is that necessary? Let the sada itself accomplish the kinyan without the presence of its owner. You don't need an owner standing by, right? Even if he doesn't know that the item is sitting in his backyard, he's kaina. Certainly he doesn't have to be there. Well, it depends what type of chatzar. It depends how secure it is. Yeah, if the item is secure and safe in that property, of course, the chatzar is kaina for him, without him being there. But here we're speaking aval chatzar she'enim shtameres. But if it's not safe and secure, whether the place is ungated or whether, right? So there, the chatzar on its own does not work. So the fellow standing right there and adds that measure of missing security in, then he can be kind of with the chatzar. But otherwise lay. No. How do we know this, to make this distinction? The chatzar she'enim shtameres, an insecure chatzar, requires the owner's presence. If he's standing there, fine. Otherwise not. How do we know this is true? Maybe a chatzar can be kind in any case. The fact is, it's my property. How do we know that it needs to be chatzar mishtameres? Otherwise, we need him to be there. And Rashi adds, by him being there, he now upgrades the property and turns it into a chatzar mishtameres. How do we know this is a requirement? The Sanya. Listen to this price. We have the farmer, the owner of the field, back in town. He left his field, he went back home. And he gets up and he says, oh, I'm aware of the fact that I have left behind a bundle, an omer, a bundle of wheat, back in the field, hoping that the workers will scoop it up. But I happen to know that the workers forgot to pick it up. So I knew about it. You see, typically shikha means he skipped a bundle while he was collecting his bundles. That's shikha. Forgotten. That forgotten bundle goes to the poor people. But here, he knew about it. He knew to identify that bundle in that location as his awaiting retrieval. He didn't forget it. He relied on his workers, and they forgot it. And perhaps later on, he also forgot, right? Lo yehi shikha. So perhaps shikha does not apply, meaning the fact that he was aware and he knew and he made that declaration prevents it from becoming shikha. Sorry. So lo yehi shikha. So this is part of his declaration. I want it to be non-shikha. Yocher lo yehi shikha. Perhaps that works. That does not turn into shikha. Talmud Lema, we have a pasuk which teaches us like this: you'll forget a bundle out in the field. Make a diuk. The concept of forgetting, the concept of shikha is specific to the field. It's a location-specific concept. If you forget it out there, then it becomes shikha. If you're back in town and then you forgot it, if you're not within the farming environment, you're back home and then you do shikha, that's not shikha. Now, we find it a bit cryptic, the wording of the brisa, because look, hagaf akasha, the brisa seems to be inherently difficult to understand, because you start off by saying perhaps this declaration of his stops the shikha process, right? Amrs, you say perhaps I can stop it, and the answer is no, it can't, right? Alma have shikha. Apparently you're trying to say it is shikha. So his declaration that I know about it, that doesn't work. The fact is, it was forgotten, it's forgotten. But then, when you present that source, that pasuk, right, you're sending just the opposite message. Exactly, fakert. V'nosiv lo Gemara, the Gemara brings the pasuk v'sada v'shachachta. The concept of shikha is specific to the field, v'loibir as opposed to forgetting in town. So what does that lead us to? Conclude, Alma lo yav shikha. Apparently there's no shikha in this type of case. So is it or is it not? Which way? So apparently, the brisa meant like this. And this relates to our discussion about a chatzar mishtameres. Look, besada, when you're out in the field, so when the brisa brings that pasuk, the point the brisa is making is like this. Besada, when you're out in the field, you're in the farming environment. Shachoch mikar have a shikha. So if he forgot initially, he left it behind, of course that's shikha. But sachar, let's say he was mindful. He's cognizant of this bundle. He didn't skip it. He knows it's right there. Well, even though later he did forget, shikha. Shikha does not apply. You know why my timer? Because he's right there. He's in the field. The kivin, the koy, since he's standing in the field, so the chatzar is now mishtameres, it's guarded, it's safe. The item now is contained within that chatzar mishtameres, and he sort of acquires it, meaning it connects to him. It becomes his completely, and it no longer allows for shikha to take effect. It's totally mine. I'm not going to give it up. He will not lose it, even if he forgets it later. It's like his regular. Imagine a person has a bundle at home and he forgets about it. It doesn't become shikha. Shikha is specific to the farming process. You skip over the bundle as you're collecting, that's shikha. But once he has it, he's kaina because the chatzar was kaina. He knew about it. He wants it. He's cognizant of it. So now it's like his regular possession. Aval beer, but if he's back in town, he's back home, he left the farm. In this case, we say, I feel zacher. Even if he was cognizant at one point, but then he forgot about that bundle, it's over, it's shikha. You know why? My timer, the less say gabe, the less gilei, because when he was thinking about it, right? Where was he? In the city. He wasn't at the location, he wasn't at the chutzner. So it's not a guarded chutzner, and therefore he's not zeicha in the bundle, and it's considered like a ordinary field bundle, in which case if it's forgotten, it's shikha. So here we have a source to this idea that the owner's presence is sometimes required. When? In order to make it a guarded chatzar mishtameres. Hold it. How do you know to learn the brisa this way? Perhaps the brisa is totally not discussing this distinction between this case and that case. Rather, the brisa is just making a simple point. Dilma gzeres hakosafi. The brisa is just presenting a halacha from the Torah. The Besada nehava shikha, ubeir lo nehava shikha. You should know that the concept of shikha only applies when you forget where in the field. But once you're home and then you forget, there's no shikha. And we have to relearn the brayse a bit differently. Rashi says we have to actually change the girsa. So we start with a fellow who says, look, I'm home now, but I know about that bundle. I knew about it. I was relying on them, my workers, to pick it up. And then everybody forgot about it. Right? So he says, I know about it, and I relied on them. I don't want it to be shikha. What happens now if it's forgotten? Is it really shikha? Yachal yehei shikha? Instead of lo yehei shikha. Do you think it's not? No, we changed the gersa. Do you think it is? And the answer is no, it's not shikha. He can keep it. Why? There's the pasuk that teaches us that shikha is only when you're in the field. Once you're home, shikha is not applicable anymore. That's all the pasuk. That's all the brayse is saying. Nothing to do with chatzar being zeicha. Forget about the whole point. Answers the Gemara, no. You can't say that shikha is not applicable when you're in the ear. Don't go back to get it. This part of the pasuk is adding even shikha when you're in town. Don't go back to the field. So you can't suggest that the brayse was making that point because it's incorrect. Well, what do you mean? This pasuk is not needed for this. It's just telling you a simple law that when you're in the field and you forget, don't go back to pick it up. But perhaps shikha sa'ir doesn't work. Forgetfulness back in town is not shikha. If it's only telling me to tell you the basic halacha, that if you forgot the bundle while you're in the field, don't go back to get it. It's a law. The pasuk should just say, don't get it. Don't pick it up. My lo yisoshev. Say lo yisoshev l'kachte. Don't return. Apparently you're elsewhere. You've traveled back to town. L'rabba is shikha sa'ir. To include even shikha resulting from forgetting the item while you're in town. Says this not. No, perhaps shikha while you're in town doesn't work. He's simply coming to illustrate for us how exactly shikha happens. What defines shikha? We have a Mishnah in Maseches Peah. Shalafanav shikha. If a person is collecting the bundles and he skips a bundle ahead, that's not shikha. Shala'achav shikha, but he skips it behind him. So he jumps over it. He leaps over it and leaves it behind. That's shikha. So, for instance, we're speaking that there are rows of bundles, right? Going, let's say, from east to west, right? So 1, 2, 3, picks them all up. He skips number 5, continues to number 6, 7, 8, 9. And when he gets to number 10, he stops, he halts, and he goes back to the second row. So number 5, which he skipped, that's called la'achra, that's behind him. He jumped over, that's shikha. He can't go back to get it. But number 10 is called a funav. It's still in front of him. He sort of never got to that point. So that's not shikha, because you know why? Because he can sort of change his collection system. He can decide that row he's leaving for the northwest collection system. Now he was going east to west. I said no, north-south. He was going east to west, right? So he left over the last one, because that one he's going to leave with the other western bundles of all the last bundles of all those rows, and then make a scoop going this way, pick them all up. So that's not called shikha. Zaklal, we follow the following formula. Zaklal, kol shuv about toshuv, when a bundle is lying behind him, and that would require returning, that's a shikha. Kol she'enim about toshuv, but a bundle which is lying ahead, which does not require turning around, going back to pick it up, ain't a shikha, that's not shikha. So bottom line is, this pasuk, is teaching us a very important formula regarding what constitutes shikha, what doesn't. But again, regarding shikha ba'ir, who says there's shikha ba'ir? Ravashi, Amar Yiyah, Rabbi shikha sa'ir. In that pasuk it says, Lager, Layasan, Amana Yiyah. Yiyah is an extra word, that even if the bundle was forgotten, once the owner got back to town, that's also shikha. So once we established that shikha applies whether it happened in the field or at home, so the only way to learn the brisa was the way we learned it initially. That what happened was he's claiming that he was cognizant of that, of the whereabouts of that bundle, relying on his workers to pick it up. And the brisa seems to say, right, the way we learned the brisa, the way we interpreted the brisa is telling us, right, that was the conclusion, the brisa is telling us that it only works if he's going to make that declaration while he's still on the field, because at that point he's there, and his presence aids and assists and abets the field in its acquisition process. It makes it a chatzar mishtameres, as opposed to once he's gone, he can't make that long distance remote control kinyan because he's not at the chatzar. The chatzar is not chatzar mishtameres. So we have back up to this point of Shmuel, that if it's not really a naturally secured chatzar, the owner's presence beside the chatzar is required. Likewise, Ula tells us, he has to stand there. Rabbi asked the kasha to Ula. The owner standing by is required. So we have the famous story, Rabbi Gamliel, V'zakein, Rabbi Gamliel and the other Chachamim, Shoyubayim B'sfina. They were traveling on a ship, and Rabbi Gamliel recalled that he had some untithed, produce. He had some wheat, which was tevel. Amar Gamliel, he went about proceeding with the Truma Maser process, but he didn't have the produce with him, but he had Chachamim. Eventually, when I get to town, I get to dry land, I'm going to separate a tenth for Maser Rishon. Nasan Yeshua. I'm giving it right now to Yeshua, who was with him on the boat. Rabbi Yeshua, Bar Chanani, Rashi says, he was a Levi, and he was taking the Maser Rishon. But in order for it to get transferred to his ownership, he had to make a kinyan. And I'm renting him the piece of property on which that Maser Rishon is sitting. I'm renting it to him. So Rabbi Yeshua gave him, a pruta, whatever. He made a kinyan to rent that location. Now it becomes his domain, his property, like his chatzar, and his kind of the Maser Rishon because of kinyan chatzar. And he proceeded v'isur achar, the other Maser, which is Maser Oni for poor people, which I'm going to separate when I get to town. Noson is now being given to the other Chacham with me on the boat, Lakiva ben Yosef, who was a Gabite tzedakah, right? A tzedakah collector. Kadesh yisku boy laniyim, to enable him to be zoich in that Maser Ani for the sake of the poor people. And again, the same point. I'm renting him the location on which the material is laden, so that he's kind of with kinyan chatz. Beautiful. The question is, they weren't there. They were sitting on the boat. The owner wasn't standing in the chatzar. Do you think they were standing there in Rabbi Gamliel's field? No, they were out in sea, on the boat. And Tosfos explains, although Rabbi Gamliel's field was presumably guarded, but the produce was not identifiable, meaning everything was sitting near each other. What belongs to Rabbi Shua? What's Rabbi Akiva? So there's no clear delineation. There was no clear determination of ownership, right? Meaning the produce was not identifiable as Rabbi Akiva's and Rishua's. That's called Einem Shtamer. It's not guarded. It's not, it's not personal. So how could that work if they're not even there to look after their personal goods? Right? Just get mixed up and it's not right. So this was Rabbi Abba asking Ula, who said that the owner has to be standing there. Here we see they don't. Ula responds pretty sharp. Amalei, he says, Dam Mihami Rabbanan, this Chacham appears to me gamri in shishmaita, like a person who didn't learn anything. He wasn't impressed with this kasha. Why? We'll see in a minute. Surah. When Rabbi Abba came to the town of Surah, Amar Luz, he turned to the Chacham and related the whole back and forth. Look what Ula said, and this is what I asked him. So a certain Chacham responded to Rabbi Abba and explained why the question isn't really so difficult. There's an easy way to explain what happened there. You see, you're working with the notion that Rabbi Gamliel granted them the Maser by way of Kinyan Chatzar. That was your, starting point, right? Actually not. Metatali, Rabbi Gamliel, metatali agav mekarki yiknolem was agav. Kinyan agav means bundled together, right? You give a person a piece of property and you bundle together metatlim, other items with that karka. As we went back in Kedushin, you can do that. You can make a single act of kinyan on both things. It's not like I gave you the karka upon which there's something positioned, in which case, once you get the karka, it's your chatzar and you kind of... No. I'm giving you both at once. The karka with the metatlim. Metatli agav mekarki knolhem. So it's unrelated to kinyan chatzar, you don't need mishtameret, it's a totally different story. There's no kasha from there on our sugi. So Rabbi Zera Kibla, Rabbi Zera, who was apparently there, agreed with this solution to this teretz. Rabbi Abba, however, he didn't accept it. Why? Amar Rav, so Rav explains. He's right for not accepting it. You can't say that it's agav. Shapir Ovid loy kibla. It's good that he didn't accept it. He's right. Because I have a question. Why did Rabbi Gamliel have to go through this whole trouble of giving them the karka and renting it? There is a much more simple method of transitioning, of granting ownership. He didn't have a kerchief, a piece of material. They didn't have a piece of material to give to Rabbi Gamliel. And in exchange, he will give them the maser, right? Chalipin, make that exchange. Simple as that. Why do you have to go rent property? Oh, so there must be a good reason why that didn't happen. And that same reason would prevent kinyan agav from happening as well. Therefore, you can't say there was agav. You must say it was kinyan chatzar, which takes us back to square one. Ella, it must be that the reason why you could not do chalipin was because you see, the Master Rishon didn't really belong to Rabbi Gamliel. It's meant to be given away to the Levi and to the, right? He only has a limited sort of interest in it, a limited stake. It's called Tevis Hana. He doesn't really own it. It's not his. He has to give it away, but he has the ability to choose his recipient. That's called Tevis Hana. He can get that he has that favor. He has the taiva, the benefit of being able to choose his recipient and getting that appreciation or whatever. So that's a very limited interest, very limited ownership, very limited stake in the item. That's not called ownership. That's not baalus. That's not your mamain. And therefore you can't just use chalipin and exchange the sudar for the... It's not really mine to give away. Hachanami, so here as well, regarding kinyan agav. You can't make a kinyan agav on something you don't really own. Hachanami, tell you, no, it's not mum, it's not really mine. Ain't a mummin, liknis agav karka. Right? To give it away, bundle with the karka. I can't make a kinyan on something I don't really own. So, according to this approach, yeah, he could not do chalipin. He could not do agav. The only method that would work would be kinyan chatzar, as we figured initially. By renting the piece of land to Rabbi Yehoshua, now the land becomes his chatzar. Oh, anything sitting in a chatzar, even hefker. Right? Like we had the whole Mishnah, right? You can be anything that's sitting in your chatzar, including the maserisha. Oh, so if it's chatzar, it needs to be guarded, mishtameres, which requires the owner's presence, which we didn't have, and that was the kasha. V'lo, says the word's incorrect. Perhaps the fact that he has some sort of interest in this maserisha, he can choose his recipient, that's considered ownership. Regarding your question, why couldn't he just do a simple form of kinyan chalipin? There's another reason for that. V'lo, it's incorrect. You see, the Torah specifies give, grant, like a gift. Pasuk says nasata a Levi, right? Give it like in an honorable, respectful way. It shouldn't appear like you're selling it to the Levi or to the Kohen. That's disrespectful, right? You're supposed to give it away as a matana. Matana is kuna the gifts that are given to the Kehanim, etc. Nesina ksivu ve'elosh nesina. And therefore, it doesn't allow for it to be transferred through chalipin. Chalipin looks like you're buying and selling, right? Chalipin derech mekach hamemkor looks like a transaction. That's not allowed. So that's why that couldn't be done. But kinyan agav, that's perfectly fine. Metalton agav mekarka, to give metalton the items, or in this case the produce, bundled with karka, that's perfectly fine. Nesina limte, it's a perfect nesina, perfect gift. So, true, he could not use the chalipin method, but he could very well have used the agav method, and perhaps that's what he did. It wasn't by way of kinyan chatzar, which is problematic in this case. It was agav, kinyan agav. It was a direct gift. The land with the produce. So the kasha was, what happened to standing near the chatzar? Well, actually, they're not using kinyan chatzar. Rav Papa Amar, Papa comes and answers another teretz, a different approach to answer this kasha. Why wasn't it required? Why didn't they have to stand near the chatzar? Rav Papa Amar, das acheres makno isan shani. It's very different. When you just acquire an item from hefker, like the a metzia sitting in your chatzar, then we need all these conditions to be met. We have to have a chatzar mishtameres, or the owner has to stand there to make it mishtameres. But if it's being given by somebody else, somebody's giving you the item, like over here, where Ramaglil was giving them. Das acheres means there's another person handling the gift. Mak noisen, giving it to them. Shani, it's very different. In this case, we don't have this requirement of chatzar mishtameres. And perhaps the svara would be, typically, mishtameres means that, look, nobody else has access, I'm designating it for myself, it's guarded for me, it's securely in my hold, in my possession, in my domain. Well, guess what? When Reuben is giving Shimon a gift, he's blocking everybody else out. By default, he doesn't want anybody else touching it. As far as everybody else is concerned, it's still mine. It's meant for him, not for you. Right? As far as everybody else is concerned, you're stealing, right? They're not allowed to just take it. So by default, just by definition, it's considered guarded. It's meant for him, not for nobody else. As far as everybody else, it's still mine, right? So you don't need this perfectly guarded, domain and all that. And that explains why he can give it to them off the boat, right? Because it was das acheres maknois. How do we know that when there's another person involved, when there's a gifter involved, that sort of compensates for the lack of security on the property? This nan we have a Mishnah. Our Mishnah, Ra, Oisan, Rotzen, Achar Metzia, B'chulu. So the Mishnah speaks about this fellow noticing some people pursuing a Metzia in his property. V'amar Rabbi Yirmiyah, Amar Rabbi Yechanan. So Rabbi Yechanan stipulates that this halacha that the Mishnah tells us that the landowner can declare the item as his because of kinyan chatzar, that's only provided that he has access to the item. It's safe and secure in his backyard. Only if he has the ability to chase the animal or the bird and catch up to it. So since it's accessible to him, he can be kaineh. Right? So we see this idea of mishtameres. It has to be contained in his chatzar. It has to be secure in there. So now it's considered under his control in his domain. And the question on that is like this. Is this specific to a mitzvah? What about a matana? If I give you a deer, and now it's running through your backyard, do you need to have that ability as well to catch up with it and tackle it? Rabbi Yirmiyah had this question. What if Reuven gave Shimon these birds or this deer as a gift, and they're running through his backyard? He can't reach it. What is the halacha there? Matana hayich. So Kiblu Minei, Rabbi Abba Bar Kahana. Rabbi Abba Kahana agreed to this distinction. He submitted himself to this sort of distinction of Rabbi Yirmiyah, this suggestion, meaning that matana is very different. Over there, even if he cannot catch up to the animal, the landowner is kaineh. You know why? What happened to the mishtameres element? It's not secure in his property. The answer is my time. You know why? Lav mishum. It must be because of this reason. Mishum dedas acheres maknois and shani. Very different when you're receiving the item from somebody else. That substitutes for the mishtameres requirement, as we explained. Amalei Rav similar Rav Papa. I have a question on this. Hari get. When a husband gives a wife a get, right? The das acheres maknoisa. It's coming from somebody, right? It's coming from the husband. And still Ula tells us that if the husband tosses it into the wife's chatzar, she has to be standing nearby. Right? It has to be that personal presence. She has to be standing near the house, near the chatzar, for the property to acquire the get for her. Why? It's being given by somebody. Answers the Gemara, no. Shani get is very different. The Isei Bal Karcha, since you can force her to accept it, so it runs on different guidelines. And therefore her presence is required. What do you mean? If anything, the opposite. If anything, it goes the other way. If even by the get, where you don't really need her cooperation, it's much easier, it's much more simple to give it to her, even against her will, right? Still, we need this personal presence. Still, we need her to be there, otherwise it doesn't work. And of course, when you want to gift somebody, give me matana, you need his cooperation. You can't just force him to accept it. So it's a more complicated transaction. If anything, the bar is higher. We need the recipient to be there to properly accept it. Right? We need this concept of personal presence and echatze mishtameres. So if anything, the other way. Elam Rav Ashi is like that. Let me clarify things for you. You're right. Let's stick with the chiddush that by matana we don't need the fellow standing there. We don't need the chatze mishtameres. Why? As we explained before, because it's coming from somebody. It's coming from a noising that compensates for the lack of secureness, right? The question was, why by get, which is also coming from somebody? It's being given by the husband. Why don't we apply the same concept here? Elam Rav Ashi, I'll tell you why. Not because it's Bal Karcha, no, that's not the reason. Chatzer is Rabbi Mishim Yad. How do we know that one can be Zoicha through his property? So back in Daf Yud, we had the Gemara that it's based on Yad. Yad can mean a hand. Yad can mean one's possession, one's domain, right? Right? So it's called Rishusah, right? So the Chatzer is deemed like his domain. That's one aspect of Chatzer. So it's his personal domain. It's an extension of oneself. But v'legara mishtichus. A person's Chatzer is no worse than a shliach. Meaning, just like you can appoint somebody to acquire something on your behalf, your Chatzer can play that same role. So basically, a Chatzer can either be viewed as a yad, an extension of one's personal domain, or as a representative of that person. Now, gabe get duchay v'lo, when it comes to a get, which is to the detriment of the isha, something negative, ein chavan adam el b'fanav. Halacha is you can't just volunteer to be a shliach for somebody if it's to his detriment, right? He has to give you permission, he has to authorize you. So when the husband tosses the get into the wife's Chatzer, the Chatzer cannot serve in capacity of a shliach. It can't serve in the role of a shliach because it's a chayiv. It's to her detriment to get divorced, right? So the only way you can use a Chatzer is if we implement the yad concept. Okay, so just like you can force her to take it, right? You can force it into her hand. You can force the Chatzer to take it as a yad. Now, if so, we have to compare it to yad. Right? Just like one's hand is right nearby. It has that personal presence, right? So if we want to employ a Chatzer as a form of yad, it has to conform to the yad criteria, which is personal presence is required. That explains why by get she has to be standing there. But by matana, which is a good thing, aval gabe matana, right? This chusalai, which is to his benefit. So there, anybody can get up and say, look, I would like to represent that recipient, accept a gift on his behalf. Zachal adam, you can be zechef for the sake of somebody, shall be funny even when he's not here, or when he doesn't know. So when I put a matana in a Chatzer, we don't need the yad concept. It doesn't have to be considered an extension of his personal domain. It could be working in the shlichus track. And just like if I actually give it to somebody, not a Chatzer, I give it to a person. Here, take it for him. He doesn't have to ask for permission. The other person, the recipient, doesn't have to be standing there, right? He doesn't have to know about it. So likewise, his Chatzer has the same ability, and the recipient doesn't have to be there. And he's kaina. But again, that's only because there's somebody giving it. So I'm giving it specifically to him. It's sort of like I'm guarding it for him, right? I'm only giving it it's designated for him. You don't need this concept of the recipient's personal presence to ensure safety and security. No. It's by definition meant for him, designated for him, everybody hands off. Okay, so that answers the kasha, right? Because Rabbi Gamliel was giving it. So therefore, they didn't have to be there. Okay, let's recap. We had the Mishnah that a Chatzer can be Bava Metzia. Now, if it's a Chatzer Mishtameres, right? Let's say, for instance, we're speaking about animals that can be accessed, injured or not able to fly. So certainly the owner can be Zeicha. But otherwise, he can't be Zeicha because they're not contained within his property. Now, let's say a person has a backyard and an item falls into it. Is he Zeicha? Well, if it's Chatzer Mishtameres, yeah. But otherwise, says Shmuel, you have to stand there to make it Mishtameres. Now, we had a kasha. How did Rabbi Gamliel give the maser without their presence at the location of the chatzar? We had two possible answers. Either it wasn't kinyan chatzar, it was kinyan agav. So he gave them the karka with the metaltlim. That system works even without personal presence. Or, according to Rav Papa, the asacheres makna is different than a metzia here, the person gifting it, so the recipient doesn't have to be present. As we explained, it's like a shliach, and the fellow gets it regardless. All the best to you, Psuras Tevis, and Tzlacha Rabbah.